Okay, guys, so another review. We are going to review what lesson 2.1 was. So, chapter 1 we did yesterday was all about adding and subtracting rational numbers and integers. Now we're getting into multiplying and dividing rational numbers and integers and then converting between decimals and fractions. These are things that we've been doing so much recently that you should be really good at it. But in case you have forgotten or you're still struggling, we're going to go back and review again. So we're going to start with what lesson 2.1 was, and that was multiplying integers. So just a little recap. Remember our song here. If I have same signs and positive, different signs, negative. All right, so this is only with multiplication and division. So, for example, if I have the problem negative 8 times 6, I just multiply. What is 8 times 6? And then I have different signs, so it's going to be negative. There you go. And remember all the different ways that we can represent multiplication as well. If I have 10 with parentheses and another set of parentheses, that also means multiplication, so we can use the dot. We can use parentheses. 10 times negative 7, we know it's 70, different signs, so negative 70. I could do negative 3 times negative 6. We know that's 18, and they're same signs, so it's positive. And one more thing I want us to remember. Let's say I have negative 2 squared in parentheses like this. If it's in parentheses, remember that's negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4. And since they had the same sign, it's positive. If I had outside of the parentheses like this, that is 2 squared, which is 4, but then you multiply by that negative sign afterwards. So remember this. Make a note somewhere in your notes. If the negative sign is outside, then it's going to be part of your answer. Just bring it around. If it's inside, you include it in the multiplication. All right? So now we're going to do 2.2. So same idea here. 2.2 is dividing, so same signs, positive, different. We have negative. So if I had negative 18 divided by 9, we know the answer there is 2. The signs are different, so it's negative 2. There are multiple ways to write division as well, so I could also do this. Negative 42 over negative 6, which is the same as saying divided by. We know that's 7, and they're the same sign, so it's positive. Okay? So make sure that you are just remembering this rule when it comes to multiplication and division. Same signs are positive, different signs are negative. Do something when you're studying, though. Try to find a way to practice some of the chapter 1 and chapter 2 questions together, just so that on the test you're not going to have a section that says this is chapter 1, this is chapter 2. So you're going to need to remember these rules even if you see different types of problems together. Okay. Now we're going to go on to section 3. Okay, now 2.3 was converting between fractions and decimals. So, first thing is let's start with fractions. So if I had the fraction negative 8/15 and I said convert that to a decimal, all you would need to do is divide. Okay? So, and remember, the 8's the thing being divided. So if you were dividing by hand, that would go on the inside. Your answer would be 0.53 repeating, negative, still a negative fraction. Okay? Let's say I had an improper fraction. So negative 13 over 6. Same thing. Now the 13th on the inside. You would end up with a whole number, negative 2.16 repeating. So if you're converting from a fraction to a decimal, all you do is divide. If I want to go the other way, and I wanted to convert a decimal to a fraction, I need to know my place value. So let's say I had this, right? What place is that? That is the tenths place. So I know this is 6/10, negative 6/10. I'm going to keep my negative sign. All right. Another way you could do this is if you put a line underneath your number, put a 1 underneath the 0, and a 0 underneath every other number, that'll give you your denominator. And just cross out everything in front of the 0. It's a more complicated way of doing it, but if you really don't remember your place values, that might help you. Can do another one. Let's say we have negative 0.35. That's the hundredths place, so we know we have 35 hundredths. Negative 35 hundredths. But again, in case you didn't know that was the hundredths place, you could just do this, cross that out. We know we have negative 35 hundredths. Now, what if we have a whole number like this, negative 5.8? Then you're going to write it as a mixed number. So 5 is our whole. We need to figure out what's this part as a fraction, though, that 0.8. We know that's the tenths place, so it'll be 8 over 10, and it's still negative. So that is less than 2.3. Okay, 2.4 and 2.5 are just multiplying and dividing rational numbers. And remember, rational numbers are just numbers that can be written as fractions or decimals. They can be whole numbers. They can also be fractions and decimals. So, same rules though. It's multiplying and dividing. So same signs positive, different signs negative. So let's say I had negative 4/9 times negative 7/9. And one thing I want you to remember when you're doing the multiplication and the division is that when it comes to fractions, you're going to multiply all the way across. When you're adding, we know we don't add the denominator, so it would just be over 9. When you're multiplying, you just multiply all the way across. So 4 times 7 would be 28. 9 times 9 would be 81. And we have same signs because this is a negative, this is a negative. So that would be our answer. Okay. Let's say we had a decimal. Negative 5.9. Negative 9.7. And these are the same sign, so it will also be positive. All right. One more thing, if you have multiple numbers, so let's say we had something like this, negative 1.6 times 0.5 times negative 20. Okay, with multiplication, remember you can multiply these in any order. It's not like adding, you can multiply in any order, but watch your signs. So when I multiply these two, they're different signs, so that's going to be negative. And then that negative number would multiply by this negative number. So just make sure you pay attention to your signs when you do this. So, for example, negative 1.6 times 0.5 would give me negative 0.8. All right? And then I'm going to multiply that by negative 20. So now I have same signs. And I'll end up with negative 16. There you go. So now we'll do a couple division problems and call it a day. So 9 tenths divided by negative 6/5. Remember when you're dividing fractions, you keep change flip. So I'm going to keep this one, change my sign to multiplication, and flip my fraction to negative 5/6. All right? Which becomes 45 over 60 negative. All right? So remember that when you're dividing, keep change flip with your fractions. And that is chapter 2.